Hello everyone and welcome to lecture 2 of week 1 CSE 1 OF. In today's lecture we are going to cover primitive data types in details, arithmetic operators, precedence and type compatibilities. Again, this is the reference material for you. This is the book that you can use for additional reference. So let's start with integer types. As mentioned before in lecture 1, integers are whole numbers. So whenever you want to assign a whole number to a variable, the type that you choose is int. And few examples of whole numbers are 0, -1, 1, -2 and 2. So in short, integer type allows both positive and negative number to be stored. And Java has 4+1 integer types which you can use for different amount of memory to store a value. So the larger the value, the larger the amount of memory will be used, and vice versa. So using a larger amount of memory to store a value means that it can store a larger number of values. Now, as you can see, short is less in memory as compared to int, and int is less in memory as compared to long, which means that short can store shorter range of numbers as compared to int, and an int can store a shorter range of numbers as compared to long. Talking about bits, so if you have just one bit, you can have 2 raised to 1 possible combinations, so 2 raised to 1 possible values, and it will be 0 and 1. Let's say if you have 2 bits, then you can have 2 raised to 2, which is 4 possible combinations, and it will range from 0, 0 to 1, 1, which is 0, 0, 1, 1, 0 and 1, 1. If you have 3 bits, then it will have 2 raised to 3, which is 8 possible combinations, and the combinations are mentioned here, which is from decimal 0 to decimal 7. So likewise, if you have n bits, then you can have 2 raised to n possible values. For integer types, so as we discussed before, we have 4+1 integer types, which is byte, short, int, long, and character. For byte, as the name suggests, the memory used is 1 byte, and we know that 1 byte is equals to 8 bits. So the possible values is 2 raised to 8, and the size range of a byte type is from -128 to 127. For short, it uses 2 bytes of memory location, so 2 bytes are used, and 2 bytes is equals to 16 bits, and the possible combinations will be 2 raised to 16, and the range is from this to this. For int, the memory used is 4 bytes, and again 1 byte is 8 bits, which makes 4 bytes as 32 bits, and the combinations that you get if you choose int type is 2 raised to 32, and the size range varies from this to this. And same as for long. So long uses 8 bytes of memory, and the possible values is 2 raised to 64. Now, how to represent an integers or representation of integers? So positive integers values, so whatever values you have in terms of positive values, they are stored straight away in their binary representation, while for storing negative values you need to use 2's complement of that number, and it gets stored inside the memory as in 2's complement binary representation. Generally, there is a formula to find 2's complement, but if you so let's say if you have a number, if you invert it and then add +1 to the least significant bit, it gives you a 2's complement of that number. Now let's take an example of an integer that is of 3 bits. So for positive integer representation, how you will represent a 0 if the bits that we are considering is 3. So 0 will be represented as 0, 0, 0, 1 will be represented as 0, 0, 1, 2 will be represented as 0, 1, 0, 3 will be represented as 0, 1, 1. And how this is calculated is this least significant bit is 2 raised to 0, this will be 2 raised to 1, and this will be 2 raised to 2. Right? So If all of this is 0, then the decimal is 0. If this bit is on, that means 2 raised to 0 is on and 2 raised to 0's value is 1. So you get 1 here. If this bit is on, then it corresponds to 2 raised to 1, and we know that 2 raised to 1 is equals to 2, so its corresponding value is 2. For this one, these 2 bits are on, that means you need to add these 2 bits, which is 2 raised to 1, a value of 2, and 2 raised to 0, a value of 1, which is 2 plus 1, 3, and you get 3 as a decimal answer. Now for negative integers, as I mentioned, that it stores 2's complement of that number. So let's say if minus a is your negative integer, it gets stored as 2 raised to n minus a. So let's consider that we are using 3 bits and minus a will be stored as 2 raised to 3 minus a, considering that it's of 3 bits. So this n will be replaced by 3 and a is your negative number that you want to store. So consider an example that I want to store a minus 1. So if we use this formula 2's complement, then it will be 2 raised to 3, considering that we are using 3 bits and minus 1 is our actual value. So 2 raised to 3 minus 1, which will be 2 raised to 3 will be 8 and minus 1 will be 7. So if we represent 7 in binary, then it will be 1 1 1, and likewise this will be 6 and this will be fine. So how do we find size range of integers? So the leftmost bit indicates the sign of an integer. If the leftmost bit is 0, then it indicates a positive number. If it's a 1, then it indicates a negative number. So considering an example of 3 bits, we can store values from minus 4 to 3. And if we represent that in a formula, then minus 4 is going to be minus 2 raised to 2. And 3 is going to be 2 raised to 2 minus 4. So that's 4 minus 1, which is 3. And this is 2 raised to 2, which is minus 4. So if we replace these 3 bits with n bits, then the formula becomes minus 2 raised to n minus 1 to 2 raised to n minus 1 plus, minus 1. Why n minus 1? Because if here it was 3 bits, then this was 2, which is 3 minus 1. So if it's n bits here, then it's going to be minus 2 raised to n minus 1 to 2 raised to n minus 1 minus 1. So this is the size range of integers. Now next is type double. So as discussed before, double type is used to store numbers with fractional parts. So real numbers are numbers with a fractional part, and Java has got 2 types. One is float and another one is double. Float uses 4 bytes and double uses 8 bytes. The difference is in the precision as well. So float its precision is up to 7 significant digits, and for double its precision is up to 15 significant digits. So float uses 4 bytes, and that's why the size range of float is minus 3.4 to 3.4, and double uses 8 bytes, and the size range is minus 1.7 to 1.7, and the races is 10 raised to 38 and 10 raised to 308. The scientific notation for floating point form is, let's say if this is your number 45678, then the scientific notation or floating point form of this number will be 4.568 times 10 raised to 4, and for this number the scientific notation form will be this. As we are moving the decimal point here, that's the reason why it's getting multiplied by 10 raised to 4, and likewise in this example as well. So a real number can be expressed in base 2 in the form of plus or minus, so whatever the number is, and then 1 point, these are the bits, times 2 raised to e. So this is the mantissa and this is the exponential part. So as you can see, this is the sign of the number, this is the mantissa, and this is the exponential part. So this is just for your reference that in order to convert any any number into its scientific notation or scientific floating form, you need to consider its sign, you need to consider mantissa, and you need to consider exponent part. Now, as float uses 4 bytes and 32 bits is used, so 1 bit will be assigned to sign, 8 bits will be assigned to the exponent, and remaining 23 bits will be assigned to mantissa. Similarly, for double, it uses 64 bits, that is 8 bytes. So 1 bit will be for sign, of course, because we discussed before that if the sign bit is 1, then it's a negative number, and if the sign bit is 0, then it's a positive number. 11 bits are again assigned for exponent, and rest 52 bits are assigned for mantissa. Now talking about characters and text. So characters are typically stored either as ASCII or Unicode. So characters is just one character. So A is a character, dollar is a character, M is a character, and they are stored in binary. So a letter A, how it is stored? A letter A represents decimal 65, and this is the binary representation of that decimal 65. So letter A is stored in binary form as this, and the decimal of letter A is 65. And the ASCII is a standard, and it uses 1 byte per character. So it's going to represent in 8 bits. So here if you see, these ones are 8 bits. And this is the full form of ASCII standard. Now, this is ASCII table. For your reference, and if we see here, capital A, its decimal is 65, and small a's decimal is 97. If you observe this one, you can see that it starts from 0 and it ends at 127. That's because ASCII was originally designed for use in the USA, and it only contains English letters, but other countries decided to add their special characters in the rest range. So the range is from 0 to 255, but here you can only see that it's still 127. So depending on the country, they decided to add the special characters in the rest of the space, which is from 128 to 255. But again, there were many problems because of those additions. Now, another way a character can be represented is a Unicode. So, as we saw that ASCII stores 1 byte per character, and it only allows 256 possible characters. Unicode extends that thing. So Unicode extends the earlier ASCII character set, and because it was allowed only 256 different characters, but with Unicode you can have more than that. So Unicode can represent thousands of different characters, and it's what a Unicode is. It simply is a number for each character. Java uses Unicode to support its character. So any character is used to represent a single Unicode character. Java internally uses UTF-16 encoding techniques. So there are two encoding techniques, UTF-8 and UTF-16. Again, it's 8 is 1 byte and 16 is 2 bytes. So as Java internally uses UTF-16 encoding, it will be 2 bytes per character. So whenever you will define a type as character, it will have 2 bytes assigned. So it will occupy 2 bytes. Characters can appear in 3 different forms. So first form is just a character as in between a single pair of quotes, and just how we write it. So let's say if I want to mention character A, I just write it inside a single quote. So that's first type, how a character can appear. As an escape sequence, we'll see it in next slide. So escape sequence is you need one more extra special symbol to for another special symbol. So we'll just see that in next slide, and as a Unicode value. So these are the 3 forms that a character appears in a Java program. As mentioned, a character can be anything, a letter, a digit, any special character, any punctuation mark, and it's written between a single pair of quotes. Single quotes. So this is a character, this is a character, this is a character as well, and all others are character. Second form is non-printable or control characters. So non-printable and control characters are something which are always written as escape sequences. So you need another special sequence of characters to represent another character, and they are not printable. So let's say if you want to go to new line, or if you want to go to the start of the line, then those are the things that comes under control. Literals, control characters, non-printable characters. So these are, here are the few examples. So let's say if you want to show a tab in your program, then it's /t. If you want to show a new line in your program, it's /n. So you need one more escape sequence, sequence to represent your another character. So if you want to print a double quote, you need to make sure that you have a slash in front of double quote, and then it will get printed. If you just try to print double quote by itself, then it won't get printed and it will give you an error. Same is the case with single quote and backslash. The third form that a character can be represented is using Unicode. So any characters can be written in Unicode with the value in hexadecimal form. So if you see here, you can see that this value is in hexadecimal form. How do we know? Because there is this letter E. In hexadecimal, it's the range is from 0 to F. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 is represented as A. 11 is represented as B, and so on. So that's how we can say that this is hexadecimal value. So just as an example, this hexadecimal value corresponds to letter N. So let's say if you try to print out that hexadecimal value, sorry, this is going to be inside the single quote. It's a mistake here. So if you try to print out a letter N, then the Unicode character is this. So the output of this particular segment of code is going to be just displaying a letter N. If you replace this Unicode character with this, then it's going to, so when you will print it and when you will run the code, it's going to give you a beep sound when it's getting executed. Now, what is strings? So when you combine more than one character, it becomes a string. So a string is a sequence of characters. For example, hello world. So if you consider this separately, then it's a character. If you combine them together, then it's a string. Strings are always always represented inside double quotes. Character is always represented inside single quotes. And these both are not same. So when you write double quotes and a character inside it, then it's treated as string. And this one will be treated as character. So they both are not same. Next type is Boolean type. So let's say when you want to just say that something is true or false. So when you want to store a variable which has only two values, true or false, then Boolean is the type that you'll use. So let's take an example that you want to just check whether a student is enrolled or not. So you declare a variable with a type of Boolean, and then you can just have two values, which is true or false. Next is operators and operands. So an operator is normal operator that you use for any operation. So an addition or subtraction, multiplication, division, and operands are what you are using with that operator. So the arguments that you want to add or you want to subtract and so on. And operator is that actual sign that you are using. So most of the time your operators are going to be binary operators. That means it will have two operands. Just how we have in case of addition and subtraction, we need two operands. Sometimes they have unary operators, so that means it will just have one operand. Example being complement of a digit. So let's say if I say I want to find zero's complement, then it will be 1. And some operate on more than two operands. Now arithmetic expressions. So expressions which uses arithmetic operators are arithmetic expressions, and they are all the simple things that we do, which is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and remainder. So this operator is also called modulo operator. And what is the task of modulo operator is it gives you a reminder. So let's say if you use this modulo operator between these two values, 8 modulo 4, so 8 is divisible by 4, and the remainder is going to be 0, so the answer will be 0. 9 is not divisible by 4, because if you divide 9 by 4, then it's going to be, your answer is going to be in decimal places. So you just need to consider the remainder in that, and then the remainder will be 1, and 10 modulo 4, the remainder will be 2. So that modulo operator, it just gives you the remainder value of the division. Now, an order in which your expression is getting evaluated, it depends on two things. It depends on precedence and it depends on association. So what precedence it follows is from highest to lowest. So multiplication has highest precedence, then division, addition and subtraction. Association is from left to right. So if there is an equation that you need to evaluate, if there is an expression that you need to evaluate, then you need to start from left to right. Parentheses can be used to change the order. So if you have this equation and if you have this equation, they both will have different answers, because parentheses change the order of the precedence. Next is type compatibilities. So in general, any variable of one type may not be able to store the value of another type. For example, here variable counter is declared as an integer, so the type of variable counter is int, and you are trying to assign a decimal value. So you are trying to assign a double to an int, which is 2.34. That's incorrect. It will give you an error. However, if you try to assign a character, it's not incorrect, but it's just a poor style, because character, if you remember, we always said 4 plus 1 integer types. So character is still of type integer, but it's not a very good style of assigning it. So this one of course won't be compatible, because int is 4 bytes and double is 8 bytes, and there are so many other reasons as well. So if you declare a variable which is of type int and try to assign a value which is of type double, then it's not correct. However, these values can be casted to different types. Sometimes it just happens automatically. For example, let's say that you have declared a variable value 1 of type integer, and this is the value assigned to value 1. So value 1 will be 123. Now you are creating another variable which is called cal2, and it is of type long, and you are trying to assign an integer to a type long, which is valid and which is automatic casting, because long can store anything that an integer can, because long is bigger in size as compared to integer. So this is valid because a long can hold any value that an integer can. But let's consider this in reverse order. So let's say that you have declared a variable which is of type long as value 3, and you have assigned 123. Now you are declaring another variable which is value 4, and you are assigning value 3 to value 4. This is going to give you an error saying incompatible types, because int is it can hold lesser value as compared to long, and value 3 is of type long. Now let's say if you sometimes really need to cast, you can do a force casting to remove that error. So let's say if this one is giving you an error, you can force cast it and to remove this error. So what you can do is you can make this one as an integer. So how you do it is just by force casting it. So opening round bracket, you just type pin int here and then closing round brackets. So this is how you are saying, even though that you have declared your value 3 as a long, now you are converting it to an int. So as mentioned, if you really need to cast it, then you need to force the casting to remove that error, and just by doing this you can force cast it. But the problem with this is, let's say here it's fine, it was the value was just value assigned was just 123, but let's say if the value assigned to value 3 variable was too big, maybe bigger than the size of an integer, then then when you are trying to cast it here, the value will be truncated, because integer can only hold certain size and long has of course more size as compared to integer. Similarly, just how as we have seen the example of long and integer, doubles and floats works the same way. We know that float is lesser in size as compared to double. So float stores 4 bytes and double stores 8 bytes. So here we have declared a variable value 1 of type float and assigned the value 12.3. Here we have declared another variable of type double and we are assigning this value which is of type float to double, which is valid of course, because anything that a float can hold, a double can hold. But if we try to do it reverse, then it's not possible, and it will give you an error saying incompatible types, because double can hold more as compared to float. Now integers can be assigned to doubles without an issue. So you can just say that you have declared an integer variable called value a and assigned the value of 1, 2, 3, and then you are declaring another float saying float cal2, and you are assigning that value 1 to cal2, which is fine, which is totally fine, and it will work without any issue. Now the issue here is, let's consider this example. So you have two integer variables of type int, and the value of them is 13 and 2 respectively. Now we are trying to add these two integers. Okay, so let's say you are saying x divide by y. Typically if you divide 13 by 2, it's going to give you an answer of 6 point something. So again you are storing it inside an integer. So system.out.println, now you are printing the value of z, which holds the division of x and y. What's the output? I know we are in a completely different scenario now, but it would have been much better if we all were in campus and you were answering these questions, and then it would have been a good discussion. But I am just going to go ahead and show the answer to you. So what will be the output to this one? The output will be 6. And why not 6.5 or 6 point something? That's because an integer divided by an integer will always give you an integer. So x is an integer, y is an integer. Integer divided by an integer will always give you an integer as an answer. It doesn't even round up. What it does is it just truncates the decimal part. So yeah, output is 6. That's because an integer divided by integer will always be an integer, and the number is truncated, not even rounded. Now let's consider this example. So we were storing it inside z, of course. So z is only capable of storing whole numbers. So the answer was 6. Let's consider this example. Here you can see that your x and y are still of type integer and the values are same, 13 and 2. Now your z, where you are storing your answer, is of type double. And then you are printing that z. What will be the output? The output will still be 6. Why? Because your evaluation will start from right hand side. So you go right to left, and on the right hand side you will see that this is an integer and this is an integer. So an int divided by an int will always be an int. So this side, it's still going to be an integer. It doesn't matter what you are storing in, but as your answer is here and it is going to give you an integer, your answer is still 6. Again, this is because the value on the right hand side of the equal sign is computed first and the type of the left is considered second. So yeah, that's it for week 1 lecture 2. Thank you so much for listening, and if you have any questions with any of the lectures, lecture 1 or lecture 2, please feel free to either email or join my consultation, weekly consultation. So I'll be having weekly consultation every week, and the time and link to that consultation will be posted on LMS. And I'll see you in lecture workshop. Thank you.